Good evening. It's Sunday, February 26th. I'm Yael Shir, and this is IBA News, broadcasting live from Jerusalem. Just days away from the publication of the State Comptroller's report on 2014's Operation Protective Edge, which contained a segment devoted to the Hamas tunnel threat, the information that was leaked to the press has generated harsh criticism. IBA's Margot Dudkevich has this report.
According to media reports, a state controller criticized the government and army for their mishandling of the 50-day war and their failure to prepare adequately for the 2014 conflict against Hamas. The controller reportedly singled out Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon, and then Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Benny Gantz, but did not recommend that action be taken against them. Responding to the allegations, Ya'alon and Gantz over the weekend defended the army and the military intelligence. Writing on his Facebook page, Ya'alon called the accusations nonsense and published a video clip showing threats made by Hamas leaders at the time and statistics stating Israel's accomplishments. On his part, the former Chief of Staff defended the head of military intelligence, Major General Aviv Kochavi, calling him the best head of intelligence the army has had in 40 years. Gantz said the accusations against the army were unacceptable, emphasizing that while it was possible to conquer Gaza at the time, at no point did the government ask the army to do so, and the army itself never recommended such a move. In transcripts of cabinet meetings during the 2014 war, Gantz reportedly referred to the Hamas tunnels as a reasonable threat. This morning, Housing Minister Yoav Gallant slammed Ya'alon and Gantz. On his Twitter account, Gallant praised the soldiers who fought bravely in Operation Protective Edge, but accused Ya'alon and Gantz of being negligent and careless. The report, which has been postponed for publication by the Knesset State Control Committee a number of times, was finally approved on January 29th, with stipulations that parts of the report would remain classified for state security reasons. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
In other news, IDF soldiers used stun guns and grenades and tear gas to disperse dozens of Lebanese protesters yesterday after two crossed the blue line, known as the international border, and approached Israel's border fence. The demonstrators from the nearby village of Mes El Jabal accused Israel of erecting surveillance cameras along the international border. Israeli security officials said they believe the protesters were provoked into carrying out the demonstration after viewing a Hezbollah exhibition, which included a display of weapons and video footage allegedly showing IDF soldiers operating in South Lebanon. At first, UN peacekeepers were unsuccessful in pushing back the protesters, but later said the calm was restored after they coordinated with the Lebanese army. UNIFIL spokesman Andrea Tenentil also rejected the Lebanese claims, saying that no cameras had been installed by Israel on the international border. The United Nations Human Rights Council took Israel to task on Friday, criticizing the Jewish state over the court sentencing given to IDF soldier Elor Azaria for shooting an incapacitated Palestinian terrorist in Hebron. The UN Council said the punishment given to the soldier was, quote, excessively lenient and unacceptable, then accused Israel of perpetrating an extrajudicial execution. The Council failed to refer to the fact that the Palestinian was a terrorist who had previously carried out a knife attack on an IDF soldier.
We are deeply disturbed at the lenient sentence that's been given by the Tel Aviv military court earlier this week to an Israeli soldier who was convicted of unlawfully killing a wounded Palestinian in an apparent extrajudicial execution. It also stands in contrast to the sentences handed down by other Israeli courts for other less serious offenses, notably the sentencing of Palestinian children to more than 3 years imprisonment for throwing stones at cars. This case risks undermining confidence in the justice system and reinforcing the culture of impunity.
Responding to accusations, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman referred to the forum as the Council of Hatred for Israel, saying, quote, the twisted moral compass of the human rights body is proven yet again. One bullet fired by Azaria at a terrorist is more serious than millions of bullets used to murder innocent people in Syria, Libya, Iraq, and Yemen. Meanwhile, unconfirmed reports out of Washington this morning claim the Trump administration is considering withdrawing the United States from the UN Human Rights Council over its so-called biased approach to Israel. The option is also being reviewed by the Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley. Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, welcomed the potential decision to withdraw from the council. On his Twitter page today, he wrote, quote, U.S. decision to quit the insanely anti-Israel UN Human Rights Council would send a moral message to the world. Despite the deliberations, State Department spokesman Mark Toner has confirmed that the U.S. delegation will be involved in the current work of the Human Rights Council session to begin tomorrow. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has reiterated the Trump administration's commitment to Israel. Speaking at the annual Republican Jewish Coalition in Las Vegas over the weekend, Pence said the administration is reviewing additional steps to demonstrate its support for the Jewish state, including the possibility of moving its embassy to Jerusalem.
We're also reviewing additional steps to demonstrate America's support, including assessing whether the American embassy in Israel should be relocated to Jerusalem. And President Trump is personally invested in forging a lasting peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Sheldon and I were talking about that issue just tonight. Under President Trump, let me assure you, America will support the negotiation process, but as the President said, any agreement must be reached by both sides, and where there will undoubtedly have to be compromises, know this. The Trump administration will never compromise the safety and security of the Jewish state of Israel.
While Washington has hinted that it may be open to a different solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, many European leaders are asserting their support for a two-state solution as the only viable way to achieve peace in the region. Speaking in her weekly video message, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she sees no other possibility as a means to achieve a sustainable peace agreement. Her comments come just days ahead of her planned visit to Egypt on Thursday, where she's slated to raise the issue with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Last week, al-Sisi met with Jordan's King Abdullah in Cairo, where the two called to establish a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. The two leaders said that any efforts to restart the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks must be based on the two-state solution, warning that failure to do so will have dangerous consequences for the entire region. Anti-Semitic acts continue to take place in the U.S. Yesterday, a dozen vehicles in the Orchard Park neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, were defaced with hateful graffiti, including swastikas, which were spray-painted on the cars. Unidentified vandals also spray-painted racial slurs and Nazi symbols on a railroad bridge and playground equipment at a local elementary school. Buffalo police have launched an investigation into the incidents, which come amidst a wave of anti-Semitic acts and threats that have swept across the U.S. in recent months. According to Buffalo News, investigators believe that a group of youth is responsible for the vandalism. They're currently examining footage on surveillance cameras in a bid to track down the perpetrators. Israel has rejected a request from the organization Human Rights Watch to grant a work permit to its regional director, accusing the organization of engaging in Palestinian propaganda. According to reports, the Interior Ministry last week issued a ruling on the matter, just 6 months after the organization asked permission for its New York-based director, Omar Shakir, to be allowed to work in the country. A letter written by the ministry accused the rights group of engaging in Palestinian propaganda while, quote, falsely raising the banner of human rights. The ministry added its decision was based on a recommendation by the Foreign Ministry, whose spokesman, Emmanuel Nachshon, said there is no reason to give a visa to a person or an organization who seeks to harm the Jewish state.
The reality is this denial has impeded our work on a series of a variety of important issues, both pertaining to abuses by the Palestinian Authority, by Israel, and by Hamas. But we intend to continue to seek a reversal in policy, and in the interim, we'll do the best to make do with our current resources on the ground and outside of Israel.
The Education Ministry has decided to shut down the Al-Nakuba Elementary School in the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Tzur Baher, accusing it of actively indoctrinating its students against Israel. The decision was reached following a joint probe conducted by the ministry, police, and Shin Bet security agency, which revealed that the elementary school encouraged its students to join the Hamas terrorist organization in its mandate to destroy Israel. A statement issued by Education Minister Naftali Bennett said his ministry will treat all cases of incitement with the utmost severity and will not hesitate to fire school principals and teachers who incite students. He noted that the school does not have a license to operate and was already informed in September of 2016 that it was not permitted to open until an investigation had been completed. A judge from the Haifa District Court announced today that she would make a decision by Wednesday regarding the emptying of Israel's largest ammonia tank. This in response to a petition filed by the Haifa Chemicals Company against the move. Meanwhile, some 3,000 people demonstrated outside the court today, demanding authorities shut down the ammonia plant that poses a serious health hazard. Junior high and high schools in the city were closed until noon to allow students to participate in the demonstrations. Earlier this month, the court decided to postpone the emptying of ammonia by 3 months after the Economy Ministry claimed that its immediate closure would disrupt the factory's operations. Police have recommended charging Ari Haro, former chief of Prime Minister Netanyahu's bureau, on suspicions of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, as well as money laundering. Haro served under Netanyahu from 2014 to 2015. A statement released by police last week suggested Haro failed to sell his 3H global consulting company, despite being obligated to do so, before joining Netanyahu's staff. Police maintained Haro continued to profit from his company and advanced its interests, all while working for the prime minister. This despite the fact that in 2013 he signed a conflict of interest agreement. Haro has been under investigation since mid-2015. He resigned from his post in January 2015 in order to work on Netanyahu's election campaign. One Israeli was killed and 8 others were injured in a tragic bus accident in Ciego de Avila, a popular tourist city in central Cuba, on Friday evening. The victim was identified as 70-year-old Nahum Henkin, who was sitting next to his wife when the minibus lost control on a wet road and overturned. Henkin's wife was among the injured. As Israel does not have diplomatic ties with Cuba, the Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem has sought assistance from the Canadian Embassy in Havana, which is assisting in coordinating the return of Henkin's body to Israel. The wounded passengers are expected to arrive back to Israel in the coming days. Iran is seeking to purchase some 950 tons of uranium ore from Kazakhstan and hopes Moscow will assist in producing nuclear fuel. This according to reports coming out of Tehran over the weekend. The Iranian student news agency ISNA, which quoted Ali Akbar Salehi, head of the Islamic Republic's Atomic Energy Agency, says 650 tons will be delivered in 2 shipments over a 2-year period, and the remaining 300 tons during the 3rd year. Officials in the West said the acquisitions will not violate Iran's 2015 landmark deal with the West, as it did not set limits over Tehran's supplies of uranium ore. Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency declared Friday that Iran is complying with the deal it sealed with major world powers and has not enriched uranium above the 3.67% limit that was previously agreed upon. Arab Idol wrapped up its final episode of the Beirut-based television singing competition on Saturday night. The winner, Yaqub Shaheen from Bethlehem, beat out the other 2 finalists, Israeli Arab Amir Dandan and Yemeni Amar Mohammed, to become the show's 2nd Palestinian winner in 4 seasons. With a Palestinian flag draped over his shoulders, Shaheen celebrated with his fellow contenders by performing a patriotic song. The night before the finals, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas hosted the 3 finalists at his embassy residence. Here at home, Israeli religious designers displayed their creations at a fashion show in Jerusalem last week, dedicated to ultra-Orthodox women. Called Modern Fashion Day, over 20 designers participated in the fashion extravaganza, attended by hundreds of Orthodox women in an event that was described the first of its kind for religious Jewish women. Models took to the catwalk wearing an array of outfits designed for day-to-day use, evening wear, and bridal dresses, and proved that modesty can be beautiful.
Trend is really modest, so people are looking in our direction now to find that modest kind of look, which is very interesting to see it, and people from out of our small communities are coming in now to buy the more modest kind of clothing.
What we decided to do is to do a special day for religious women, okay, who wear only modest dress, and to do a real fashion show. with the red carpet, and with the most beautiful dress in the world. So let's start. 1, 2, 3, go. Action.
It's Sunday, and in keeping with our weekly tradition, here are 5 good news stories that may give you a reason to smile. Expectant mothers will soon have 1 more week to spend with their newborns as part of an extended maternity leave. The Ministerial Committee for Legislation approved the extra week in addition to the 14 weeks they already receive. The reform is slated to go into effect later this year. From something new to something old, an 18-year-old limestone column capital engraved with 2 Hebrew inscriptions dating back to the Roman period was recently discovered during a restoration project carried out in an ancient synagogue in the western Galilee village of Pki'in. An Israeli doctor, Michal Kaufman, from the Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital, has successfully performed complex implant surgeries on 16 deaf Palestinian children, allowing them to hear for the first time in their lives. The operations were conducted as part of a special program sponsored by the Perez Center for Peace. Israeli researchers at Ben Gurion University have developed a verification method to catch smartphone thieves in just 14 seconds. And finally, award-winning Israeli composer and conductor Ori Leshman is bringing his 13 weeks Music for Dialogue workshops to the School of Communications at the Interdisciplinary Center in Herzliya. His vision is that music will be used to unite people, overcome barriers, and improve society, both in Israel and abroad. In more good news, the streets of Tel Aviv were given back to the drivers on Friday afternoon as the annual Samsung Marathon wrapped up. Considered Israel's largest sporting event, the marathon drew in 40,000 athletes, with over 1,800 participants coming from abroad. The winner of the 42-kilometer race was Ethiopian runner Gezu Balata Mekonnen, who completed the run in 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 12 seconds. In addition to the 42-kilometer race, the events also included a half marathon and a hand cycling race for the physically challenged. Hundreds of police officers and paramedics lined the streets, which were closed due to traffic. In finance, no change in the shekel with currency markets closed for the weekend, and the stock exchange is starting the week down. Turning to the forecast, the IBA weather team says that tonight and tomorrow there will be partly cloudy skies with unseasonably high temperatures. Here are the highs and lows at home and abroad. That's all for this newscast. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel. Until then, I'm Yael Shir, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.